Well, good morning, folks. We are gathered here today. Again, we have this visiting minister. She doesn't understand Pennsylvania Dutch, so it's interesting. It's going to be interesting. But, we have this visiting minister with us, but our bishop said we don't take communion with her, so I think Elam has a few words to say
Come
about that.
on.
Come on.
Good morning, Susie. Welcome to the program. Susie was raised Hutterite, and uh, I don't know much about Hutterites. I know enough about them that I was always a little fascinated about those strange cousins. But maybe we'll learn some more today. Welcome, Susie.
Thank you so much, guys. It's so good to be here.
Yeah. So Hutterites don't speak Pennsylvania Dutch for those who don't know, right? Did I get that right?
You got that right. We have our own language, though. It's pretty close to Pennsylvania Dutch.
Is it also spoken only and not written?
It is written. I actually found a podcast where they are writing down the whole New Testament in Hutterish. So that's been interesting to listen to, because speaking English all day at work, it makes you a little bit rusty.
Yeah, it really does do that. And how long ago was it that you were Hutterite?
So we left, our entire family left in 2002, and we moved to Pennsylvania right away because we had a couple relatives here.
Boy, that was a mistake. Sorry.
Well, it was at the time. I do love Pennsylvania. It's definitely become my I feel like home here. I feel like Pennsylvania is my home. Even though I love the big skies of the Midwest, Pennsylvania definitely has a place in my heart. I think more now than what South Dakota or Minnesota would have.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
I'm glad we haven't scarred you so badly that you don't feel at home here.
Don't hang around with Elam. He'll scar you. He wouldn't take communion with you. I'm just saying.
I learned from the best, Mary. Now, come on.
You can't blame me for everything.
Watch me.
Look. All I'm saying is not everything is my fault.
She sips coffee from the girl boss.
She has the best mug.
So I have a question for you, Susie. When I was a kid, I was basically just overhearing some adults talking about Hutterites, and they said that when the Hutterite youth are struggling to whatever, I don't know what the term is, it's through what we would call our Rumspringa, and they're questioning whether they want to join the church. They have like a halfway house situation agreement with non-Hutterite people, where these youth get to sort of out of that pressure cooker environment of, oh my God, I have to make a decision. And I'm correct that you do adult baptism, or the Hutterites do adult baptism. And is that a thing? And
no.
It's not a thing.
Dang.
You
know what?
Well,
there goes that romanticization.
There goes that myth.
These kids, they're called Weggelaufen. My dad was actually a Weggelaufen. They leave when they're usually 17, 18, 19. They'll grab a bike if they can find one, or somehow arrange a pickup a mile off the colony, in the middle of the night, jump in a car with someone they know from the outside, and have to make it on their own from that point forward.
Oh, this sounds familiar.
It's 50-50. it can go really, really bad, or it can really go well. In Canada, it seems like the Hutterite young people in Canada who do the running away is English. They have an easier go at it. And I want to say that's because of the Canadian social net that they have versus the American lack of social resources.
Yes.
Yeah, a lot of my relatives have left, have not been able to make it on the outside, have really made some tough choices that ended up being bad choices and have had to go back.
So here's a question. Can you translate that word, Vekdrafa? Is that what you
Oh,
said?
Laufen. It's
Weglaufen?
basically runaway.
It's
So,
it's it's very
so,
similar to opgangeni.
so, wir sind abgegangen, wir sind fortsprungen. Like, that's all like the same thing. It's like, we're all apostates, right? Typically,
Yeah.
basically. We're runaways. We don't follow the faith, etc., etc. But damn, like, why we gotta be serious already? I wasn't done. We still had church business to discuss, Elam.
You just want to get rid of Susie. That's what you want to do.
No, I just want to talk about church business real quick.
All right, all
Because
right.
last I heard, Elam was never repentant about doing women's work.
So I made my wife breakfast or some shit like
Oh
a
no.
week or two ago, and she wants to hold it against me. And
You know what, Elam? Real men, godly men, don't do stuff like that.
Menchie told you. She gonna let you know. Hey, and one more thing. I feel like I might be put in the bond today because look at these.
Wow. What's wow. Did
Oh,
you
and
yourself?
no,
Oh,
no.
because I was really impressed with like your steady hand.
No, we didn't learn that in Amish school.
Yeah, neither. Yeah, I mean, I have some repenting to do too because I still wear earrings, guys.
Oh, let me see.
I'm not wearing them now, but I've pierced
well,
ears and I've been told that that'll send me straight to the bottom.
Does that mean that my navel piercing is also need repentance?
well,
And
see,
what about the 6 tattoos I have?
Yep.
see, I can bring this to real time real fast, Susie. I don't feel comfortable with you going to college or whatever that studying business you're doing.
Oh my god. Oh my god. I got so much grief for going to high school. You have no idea. Like every day I would leave the co-op, the homeschool co-op, and my aunt would spot me sometimes and be like, "You should be at home cleaning the floors." Like, are you serious?
Oh, wait, Elam, what was that phrase they used to say about education when they didn't want us to go?
Um,
There was a phrase. Anybody know what that phrase was? There were a few.
I'm drawing
It,
a blank, but
it's right there at the edge of my fucking
see,
head.
the reason I don't know it is I was always a good little Amish guy, and that's why it was never used on me.
See, and I was always the bad one. Let me tell you
Oh,
something.
well,
There is nothing like being an Amish girl and deciding that, yeah, you're gonna go experience some things or do some things. Like, for example, I had a friend that would take me to the library once a month to replenish my secret stash of books.
Oh my god. Did you
I wasn't
I got into
supposed
trouble. I got
huh?
into so much trouble for reading Mark Twain. Twain, are you serious?
was see, I actually think the source of my whole trajectory of leaving was because as a pre-adolescent child, I read the unabridged version of Mark Twain at our little one-room school, and the only reason it was there is because the school, the Plain community took over the school from the public school system, and so there was some meager library books there that hadn't been, vetted yet.
Oh my.
Gotta glue those pages together, Elam. Glue the pages together.
Well, and we have a question from one of our listeners. Tattoos, is it a way to ensure you never go back? Feel free to ignore. I know it's an intense question. Well, if you wanted to go back after you got tattoos, you'd have to have them medically removed in order to go back. However, pause, that's not why I have tattoos. I have a tattoo. My very first tattoo was in memory of my two brothers that passed away. They both were really young. Daniel had a cyst on his brain, and he had grand mal seizures for the entirety of the time that I knew him. And Andy had spinal meningitis when he was a baby, and he drowned in the bathtub. And he was only 28 years old. So I got a tattoo in memory of them. It was one of the most wonderful things I ever did. And then I decided I liked that. And then I got a tattoo for my kid. And then I got a tattoo for for my sister. And then I got 3 tattoos for myself. 2 of which people are pretty intensely familiar with. I don't know if I can show you. Oh, wrong way. I don't know where the camera is today.
It says shunning, no regrets.
No, shunned. Shunned. I am shunned. Hashtag shunned. Hashtag no regrets. And then the other one is, I don't know if I can show you that. Can I?
Tell what the other one is. A picture of a covering that's on fire.
What? I burned my damn covering. Best riddance ever.
I need to see that. You send me.
Come on, show it to her.
Oh my gosh! See, look,
I can't.
I don't know how.
Your arm doesn't. You're okay. That is so cool. Wow.
All right.
Because I burned my black church cap. Burned it to smithereens. It was great. The ashes rested well. I think it was God's will, people.
I think it was.
The good Manhotsville.
Otherwise, it wouldn't have burned up,
Right.
See, I see there's some familiarity with scripture coming into play here. Things burning that don't burn.
Yeah.
Well, I've often wondered if it was God's will that my covering burned so easily, but I think it was. If there is a God, it was God's will. I'm just saying.
So, not to put you on the spot, Susie, but how would you identify in terms of faith now? Are you still a believer, or and if that's you're not comfortable answering, that's okay.
Oh no, it's fine.
Tell him next. Tell him he's crying.
A believer in what? I am a believer in I don't know, something. I'm weird as hell, Elam. Yeah. So I mean, I obviously I was raised Christian, Hutterites, and I really tried so hard. So I read my Bible like cover to cover, like a dozen times. I really, after I left the church, I became incredibly angry, which I'm sure you know the feeling.
Nobody gets angry when they leave a cult.
And that I was so resentful about how I was denied an education. I was denied an opportunity. I was raised to get married to a man who I was supposed to serve, all that bullshit.
Hold on. Let me interject here. You were raised to serve a man?
Yeah.
How far did that being a submissive servant to your man go? Were you allowed to consent or not to consent to sex?
God damn, Mary, that's off limits.
Say.
Okay, what I've come to realize about that, it's not just ex-Hutterites who
Want some
kind of,
coffee?
I would love that coffee.
It's as dark as my soul.
I mean, when you tell women that they have to submit no matter what, and it's your fault if your spouse is being abusive, it's your fault because A, you're not submissive enough, B, you're not praying for him enough, and you're not respecting him. It's perfect for abuse.
Might as well go in a whole full 9 yards and throw in the whole it's your fault that you're being abused because you're
Yeah.
dressing like a Jezebel. That included?
No, it's more of you're not being submissive and respectful enough. That's the line I got a lot. You're not praying enough. You're not respectful enough. Men need respect, and then they'll love you better.
Right,
Yeah,
because that's how that works.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but my belief system really, I think I wouldn't say I've come full circle because I don't consider the Bible to be the living word of God anymore. But I do recognize there's some really useful lessons, especially in the Old Testament with the prophets. A lot of the Lamentations and with Jeremiah, Isaiah, Hosea, all of those prophets, I really have come to love because they have such a message about social justice and serving the poor and serving orphans. And I really identify with that because I've been in some pretty bad places. Yeah, so I respect people who still believe. To each their own. What I don't put up with is using the Bible to beat people with, and I don't think anybody should.
Yeah.
Here.
So I have another quote from the Old Testament. How about I think it's from the Old Testament. How about an eye for an eye? Or
No,
no, it's not useful.
no, it's not useful.
What about hold up? It's like, so obviously most of our viewers know that I am considered a lesbian by society standards. So what about that verse that they always talk about the homosexuals and how we're abominations and all of that? And I just want to ask about the verse where it talks about you shouldn't be eating seafood. Like do people comply with that? What about like you shouldn't be wearing clothing made out of two different threads of fabric? Like, do you follow that?
This woman knows her scripture, let me tell you.
I mean, I read the Bible twice, cover to cover.
Yeah.
Before I was 14.
This problem I run into a lot when I used to hang out with ex-Hutterites is they would attack me for having my hair down or for having earrings or wearing jeans instead of a maxi skirt or what have you. And my reply would be, okay, the Bible also says this and this, you follow that. No. So
what about
you pick what you follow and I will too. It's a lead. Into a lot of trouble too.
What about the verse where it says if a man harms a child, then it would be better that there would be a millstone hung from his neck and he would be thrown into a pond? What about that?
Yeah, I love that verse. I love that verse. I don't know. I'm really conflicted about Jesus the man in general. He said some pretty awful things about outsiders, and on the other hand, he was disruptive to the economic and social structure of his time. But he said some really bad things, right? Like,
yeah.
Do you want to enlighten us with those things? Not all of us are Bible scholars.
I'm not a Bible scholar. I've read the Bible a lot.
No.
Well, this one story that comes to mind is this one woman who was a Gentile. She wanted to be healed. And he said, I don't, basically, I'm paraphrasing here. He said, I don't heal Gentiles. I'm here to serve the Jews. That's racist.
That's extremely racist.
It's racist. And she kept begging. And she said,
he went in
even
here.
the dogs, she said, even the dogs get crumbs. And he was like, well, you got a point, I'll heal you. And I know it's not true. I know it's not, it didn't actually happen, but that type of rhetoric, that really bothers me.
What about the people that believe that what is his name? I can't say the English word, but like the brother, the where black people come from and where people of color come from would be the verse in the Bible. What about that one? We should make Elam go do his own damn research. How
Yeah,
about that?
get
Yeah,
your
Elam,
Bible.
go get your Bible and start researching this.
Get your German Bible.
I'm happy to change the subject here.
Okay, so here we have if you come visit, we can get a tattoo together. Yes! Let's go! We should all go get tattoos.
That means you're going to have to come to Pennsylvania,
I'm
Mary.
planning on it someday. I'm going to come to Pennsylvania.
It's great.
Well, I mean, when I come to Pennsylvania, I'm going to go visit my biological parents' graves as we're going to have never mind. Let's move on. It's yeah. Liberating, huh?
What are we missing out here? Surely there's some good questions from the viewers.
We can clean some men from some churches with some millstones.
God. I have there.
Yeah.
That's a whole
other thing.
Well,
that's like a
we can talk in a little bit different language about it. There's a bishop been charged with child molestation, and my question, what I want to know is whether the district attorney is going to have the whatever you want to call it to lock an Amish bishop up here in Lancaster County.
You mean the cojones, the balls?
I want to know if the bookies are taking bets on it. Sorry, it's not funny, but you're a political activist, Susie. What do you think?
I don't know anything about it, Elam. I'm a political organizer, and I'm spending my life. I've resolved to spend my life to make this world a better place than when I found it, and to make sure that everybody gets to have the same opportunities, not just people with power and people with money. And I'm always hopeful that people will do the right thing and that public pressure will be enough to bring results for victims. But I mean, you and I, we both know that poor people lose, victims lose.
Oh, and let me interject here.
Oh, wow.
Yes, they already let him out on bail. But let me interject here. So in 2004, when I reported my abuse in Wisconsin, there were 3 other abusers that were sent over to the state of Pennsylvania. And the state of Pennsylvania dicked around on it and did nothing practically until like 10 years later when the statute of limitations ran out. In my case. So let's talk about how that was 17 years ago. Today it is that the state of Pennsylvania is actually fucking charging them. I mean, like that's a big difference, but still it's like for me, it gives me hope that someday some of these things will be changed. In the same token, like this whole letting him out on bail, like, are you kidding me? And also, like, the reports that we hear are that, neighboring bishops knew about this and did nothing. And so when are they going to hold those bishops accountable? Because to me, everybody that sits there and listens to this and knows that and is in that bishop's church, like, how is he even still a bishop? And not to mention, we're having this conversation, but who is talking about these victims? Who has, let me give to you the quote from Judge Rossborough in one of my hearings. He said, how many of you have actually sat there and had compassion for the victim in this case. And the day he said this, there were 4 busloads of Amish people in the goddamn courtroom supporting the rapist. They
Yep.
were, and that's something like, how much has that really changed? Where is the outrage for these victims? Where is the justice for them? And how do you call it justice if they're just set free and they're free to do it again? There's no real consequences.
I mean, I do see the same exact situation play out, not just in Amish churches. It's also happening like at the charity churches. It happens in mainstream evangelical American churches. It happens everywhere. And when people do speak out, not only are they attacked,
Yup.
it's completely 9 times out of 10, the perpetrator is defended and
Mhm.
supported and prayed
Mhm.
for and
Mhm.
given counseling.
Mhm.
And I mean, I honestly don't know what to do about that. I know there's some really great people who are working on that, but then again, they're being attacked for it.
Right. And not to mention, some of the churches will in the communities, they will literally attack the victims that do speak out.
Yep.
And I'm known as forever, and that this I'm unrepentant for, for reals. I will never be repentant. Thank you. But I'm known as forever for, quote, tearing my family apart and
Yeah.
tearing my community apart and shedding a bad light on the community. And, well, it's just her. She's just got some mental problems, or she just dresses like the English people. Shoot. Really? That's
Yeah.
what you have to say? Where is your compassion? You have all this compassion for people that are predators and are preying on your children. Where is this compassion for the people that are the victims of those predators?
I don't think you'll find that. I don't think that with the church being the church it is today, with it being protecting the powerful, protecting men, we're not going to see justice within the church. And I mean, I know some people stay and fight and work to change that. But for me, when I experienced that, I started, my mental health declined so badly. I was having panic attacks every Sunday morning at church. Um, and I was told the same things, Mary. Oh, you're tearing your family apart. Um, you aren't strong enough. You're not praying enough. You just need to submit as a woman. And I just said, no, I'm leaving. I don't need this. It was
So,
either that or my life, right? It was either that or my life.
well, I firmly believe that I would be dead had I stayed in the community.
Yeah, me
I
too.
would have killed myself. I would have not been able to survive. I already tried to kill myself as a teenager in the Amish community. It's not okay. The the horrors that they put these children through, all for the guise of protecting these predators, is unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all about one, we're trying to reclaim some of the narrative surrounding our communities. But part of the issue is that even in this Amish bishop and his son being arrested, I haven't seen any mainstream media. I've seen local newspapers bring it up. At the end of the day, they don't give the same coverage to Amish issues, or even I've never seen much about Hutterites either, or Mennonites, for example, or even the charity churches. I haven't seen that in mainstream media. If this was not an Amish bishop and his son, and it was in the Catholic Church, that would probably, be more widespread.
Yeah, I wonder why that is, because the Hutterites have really skated by without really being seen, and they have some problems. And I don't see the sexual abuse in Hutterite churches. You don't really hear about it. That's not to say it doesn't occur, but it is not as prevalent as it is in some other circles. And I think one reason is because there's nothing private in Hutterite colonies. You are allowed to go anywhere you want to. So you don't lock your doors. Somebody can walk in at any time to your house without, they don't knock either. They just come in and you're like, well, hey, come have some tea or what have you. And that,
But what if I don't want tea?
you
Unconscious people don't want tea.
can have coffee.
So, Susie,
But
could I?
there's physical abuse. I mean, anybody can beat anybody's kid. Oh my God, I got spanked every single day of my life several times because I was late all the time.
Oh my. So what you're
I
saying
was late
is,
for every meal. I never learned. I was late for 3 meals a day. I had to kneel next to the door during prayer, and then after the meal I would get my spanking, and I'd be like, great, I'm gonna go play now, I guess.
So,
wow.
Susie, would you be willing to talk a little bit about you? I'm not sure how you phrased it. Like you said that you would have not survived had you
Right.
stayed. What in terms of like giving our listeners some, who are in similar circumstances, what were the sources of strength and help that you found on your once you decided, okay, I need to get out? What did that journey look like?
It was a 3-part journey because when I was about 11 or 12, I think, I decided that I wanted to have an education. I wasn't going to just be living in a colony, die in a colony. I wanted an education. I wanted to do stuff in the outside world. And I made a decision that I was going to leave when I turned 18. So Vic Glaube, that was going to be me. But I didn't really know what to do. I didn't know who to talk. I didn't have anybody to talk to. You really don't. And I was being abused emotionally and physically by family members on a daily basis, and I really had nobody to talk to about that. And I became suicidal, I think, from the time I was 12. I would hear about people getting hit by a truck or falling off a bridge, and 12-year-old me was like, that could work. That could work. But then we
Sorry.
moved. Yeah, well, it was hell. It was hell and I'm sure, I know I'm not the only kid to have gone through that in a colony. I got into a lot of trouble for being too vocal and for sticking up for my friends. My friends would get punished and I would stick up for them, and I got into trouble for it's called groesmouwlet, which means you don't know when to shut your mouth and be respectful.
So you have a big mouth, huh?
Yep. Ich bin groesmouwlet, that's what they say.
No.
Yeah. So we moved to Pennsylvania when I was 14, and I thought that was my salvation. I thought, yes, we're finally off the colony. I can go to school. I can be on the outside. Mind you, I barely knew how to interact with. I couldn't even order a pretzel at Annie Ann's. I was scared to death.
Wow.
Yeah, my mom made me learn how to order a pretzel. She's like, here's the money. You go get it yourself. I was 14. I could barely do it. But then we ended up at the charity churches, which was even worse, I think, for me and my sisters. And I really tried so hard to fit in, and I eventually succumbed to like the brainwashing and the pressure. And I thought the right thing to do was, if I would just get saved, then all my problems would go away and people would stop abusing me. And so I did that, and I got baptized, and I thought this was going to work out. Now I'm going to be, it's going to be fine. My family's going to accept me. That didn't work out, and I ended up being pressured into marrying a man that I did not love. My parents forced my so at charity, you're not allowed to date without approval from the ministry and the families. And I liked this guy, and he liked me, and we really were best friends before we even ever liked each other. And we wanted to be together. We're in our late teens. Plain people get married really young, and we thought, well, in the next year or so we'll hopefully get married. And my parents told us we couldn't talk to each other ever again, and we thought we were doing the right thing, and we said, okay, this is God's will. And then my parents wanted me to marry this other guy, so I did that. And I was raised to do that, right? You're raised, the Bible says wives are supposed to submit to their husbands and serve their husbands and make sure he has a great life. And I tried so damn hard to make it work. And it was awful. It was absolutely awful. He, like 2 weeks after we were married, he started physically abusing me. And jerking me around and screaming at me. And I told my family, and they were like, well, too bad. Now you're married. And I was like, yeah, too bad. Now I'm married. I guess I should read books about how to be a better wife. So I did that.
What books did you read?
Oh, I don't even remember.
Okay.
Some bullshit about how it's your fault when your husband acts like
This sounds like so familiar. I feel like I can relate to this. Are you sure
Yeah,
it wasn't Amish? Like, for reals?
yeah, it was. And that, the physical abuse stopped. As long as I, was an obedient, good little wife, it worked out. But then one day it had been 2 years of crippling depression, and I had plans to end my life. And I had written a will to leave my kids to my sister. And I was like, this is bad. I need help. My family wouldn't help me. They said if I left, I would go to hell. And so I decided the best thing would be to just end my life, because they told me that God never forgives divorce and I will go to hell. And I believed it. And the only thing that saved my life was a volunteer at a woman's shelter told me they have a spot for me and my kids. And I left. I snuck out with trash bags and my kids and said goodbye. I'm never coming back. And
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
that was
incredibly fucking moving and powerful. Like, good for you. I'm so glad you got out of that.
Yeah, she
Because,
saved my life. This volunteer saved my life.
yep, I definitely believe that. That is, I think there may be some listeners that, because you never know who's listening to this, and there are some, like, if you're in a situation like that, there is help somewhere.
Yeah.
There are people who will help you. And that's, like, really important.
Yeah, and if your family won't help you and if your friends won't help you, keep looking, because my family stopped talking to me after that. Um, but you sometimes have to pick a new family, and there are people out there who will love you and who think you are a great person and who will support you more than your family ever would.
This is true. I will definitely agree with I have to agree with that. That is very true. And at the end of the day, I know there's a lot of people that have said like the blood of the covenant is and the thing is that what they don't understand is like if you research the origins of that, the original saying was actually the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. When you have family that chooses you, that family has a stronger bond with you than, for example, the people like for example, like my one of the ladies who helped me out, um, you know, she had a stronger bond with me than my biological mother ever did, ever.
Yeah.
And that's just an example of like that actually I believe that to be true. But yeah, we have some comments to talk about. I've gotten told how horrible I am because I won't forgive and forget. Stop attacking a man of gut. Gut is God.
Yeah.
How dare you? Well, of course, if you say anything about any of the abuse, you're automatically, yes, we are expected in plain culture to just move on and shut up. Let's sweep everything under the rug and pretend it didn't happen because if we pretend it didn't happen, it never happened.
Yeah, we're not going to do that. I just
No.
you have a mug that says girl boss. I need one that says no thanks. Um, so when people say stuff like this, I can just sip my coffee and just no thanks.
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
I have a shirt that says "Shunning kills. We will not be silent. Prosecution is not persecution. Plain people are not above the law."
right, right.
Thank
And
you.
I think that's something that I think Christians in general don't understand. Is that there have to be consequences and there has to be some sort of repentance before there can ever be any sort of reconciliation. And even with consequences and repentance, there might not be reconciliation, and that's okay too. I mean, you're not owed a relationship with somebody just because you apologize for something and paid for it.
Huh, right. Here's another one. I think you might have a fellow charity.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yes.
we've met
Yes.
online. Yes.
Yes. Oh, and here's a book series, Godly Home
Oh
series.
no! Why? We never want to hear about that ever again, okay, Chris?
We're done. Cut it off.
No
Two
more.
God,
chops to the throat.
mm, Denny Kennison. Wow. And Mo Stoltzfus, if you guys are familiar.
We know he's
We've
dead.
we've heard a few things. Yeah. Should we move on?
Yes.
They don't want to be attacked, then do better. I'm not going to shut up anymore. I mean, I think a lot of us here, like, kind of feel that sentiment. Like, don't, it's not an attack. Speaking the truth. You want to talk about Bible verses? Let's talk about the one that says the truth will set you free. Let's
Yeah,
talk about that.
like that one.
Let's talk about that, people. Come on. The truth will set you free. Thank you. It will give you freedom. So when people sit there and they speak their truth, I want them to think about how their truth will set them free. But yeah, no, I think they need to do better. I think that personally, for me, have I seen differences since like 17 years ago? Yes. But is it enough? No. That's where I'm at. What do you
There,
think?
Elam? Me?
Both of you.
There was a bishop actually just in the last couple years who was charged for he would be a mandatory reporter and he didn't, and somebody in the Amish community reported him to the police, and he was charged, and of course he was never jailed, but he was charged, and I'm not sure what the charges were. You know, he violated. He's a mandatory reporter. So that the big thing there is that Amish people, old order compliant Amish people, went to the police and said, "Hey, the bishop did not report this," and the police acted on it. And I'm not sure what the settlement was, but that's new. That takes a lot of courage from the inside to go after a bishop, and it's also a new kind of charge. It's not like the earlier case we were talking about where the bishop was a perp. The bishop was a mandatory reporter and didn't comply, and I don't think it was his parishioners, but somebody in the community reported him.
Yeah.
And that's, I don't want to paint roses here at all, but that's different. That's new, and it's hopeful.
Do you think that's because people weren't aware of this mandatory reporting law before? Because I remember when Charity had some sexual abuse scandal that came out, they reported it because of that, because they knew if they didn't report it, they would be held accountable by the prosecutor. Do you think people are becoming aware of the law and that's why they're reporting it? Or do you think people have had enough and they're speaking up, or both?
I think it's more than likely a combination of both, but I also think that when you start talking about it, it's like, you know, I don't know about like Hutterite background, but I can tell you from like an Amish background, like at the end of the day, like there's this whole separation. They hold themselves separate. They even have a word for the non-Amish community, like they call them English, and you
English,
know,
yeah.
and they kind of teach their children that like, anything that the law wants you to do is against our religious freedom. Like they have that blanket of like, it's against my religious freedom, so you don't have to do it.
Yeah, Hutterites don't have that. Hutterites are really weird in that they revere police officers and the military. And I don't understand it because they are quite literally communists, and they are non-resistant. They are pacifists. They were tortured to death and killed during World War I for being non-resistors. So I don't understand why they just think cops are so great and the military is so great. I don't get it.
That makes like literally no sense
It
at
doesn't
all.
make any sense. It really
Well,
doesn't.
One of these things does not belong with the other.
I can speak to that a little bit. In the class that
Really.
I was part of at Franklin Marshall College, we talked about that, and there's a moment in history when that flip happened, and it was manipulation from the outside. And I talk about how the Amish are not in charge of their own story, and that's because outsiders figured out that the Amish don't speak for themselves, and so they can speak for them, and so they get used in completely outrageous, insane ways. There's David Weaver Zerker wrote about this, how the Amish were characterized in a certain way in a major newspaper in regards to a certain issue, and they were called patriots, and yet they didn't serve in the military. There's all these, it's complete
No, they
fabricated.
didn't freaking do anything in
No,
the military. Like,
It's
they
completely
don't even.
fabricated bullshit, and yet it becomes accepted, and it sounds like the Hutterites were a part of that narrative and bought into it, that we're patriots, and
I think it has more to do with they revere authoritarian figures
yeah,
because, so for example, their minister, their Blediga, he is chosen by lots. And
yes,
if he turns
Same.
out if he turns out to be a really, really bad person, they're like, well, it's God's will.
Yeah, we know all about that.
They can't remove him, and they think they have to obey. And you have to ask permission for everything. And so I think that socialization of submitting to authority and revering authority plays into their respect for, the police officers. Um, but I mean, I remember as a kid, just we were obsessed with cops. I found nail polish one time when I was like 4 or 5. I found this really nasty metallic.
I
Mary,
feel
it was
like
awful. It
you
was
were a
so
rebel.
ugly. It was ugly and it was old. And I thought this was great. I painted it on. I was like, look at my nails, to my
Oh my
babysitter
God.
and her friend. And they immediately were like, you can't have nail polish. We're calling the cops. And I thought it was real. I was sobbing. I thought I was going to go to jail. But they thought this was really funny.
Oh, you want to hear a funny story from me?
Yeah.
Huh. So, we had an Amish neighbor at one point in time for maybe about 2 years who would have like a dump truck come and like dump trash in the dump every week. And like I was the child who would go and dig through the dump and find things to play with and hide that I wasn't supposed to have, you know?
Nice.
Like the broken Barbies, yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, like, what we would do is we would hide them in the cornfield or in the woods because it was me
Mhm.
and another girl, and I can't say her name because she's still in the community, and you'll never know. She might still have to repent or, you know,
For the Barbie dolls. We were allowed to have Barbie dolls.
we were not.
Yeah, we had so many, and we had our own homemade Hutterite furniture for the Barbies too, with
wow.
matching upholstery with whatever couch my mom had upholstered that year.
Wow.
Um, yeah, we had all the, because Hutterite women would like be allowed to go to yard sales every couple months in the summertime, um, for fun, and they would buy stuff for us. So
Wow.
Barbies.
No, no. I don't know if you've seen my Facebook page, but there's actually like pictures of an Amish doll there. A few of them. They're a little bit rebellious. They're a little tiny smidget of rebellious.
Okay.
But anyways, we do have another comment. I think it's kind of funny. It says, "I hear Moe's and Danny's graves are non-gendered bathrooms for legal reasons. I'm in no way supporting pissing on graves." Man, that's a statement. No, we don't support that.
Well, I have a story about police and integrating themselves and the Amish intentionally using it. I had a nephew who actually charity people were trying to help him out of the community, and uh, him and his wife went to some Amish plain community quasi mental health program for a weekend, because of course if you're considering leaving, it's just enormous amounts of stress, and so their response is to send them to these places, which is just crazy abusive. But he decided, good little my blood, he decided that he doesn't need to be there, and left, and his wife stayed, and it's so obvious these are just propaganda sessions is what they are. But he left and he went to his one of his siblings' homes to pick up their children, and his siblings his sibling wouldn't give him his own kids back and literally called the cops on him. And I wish I knew more. I don't know more. Did the cops I think the cops showed up, but whose side did they take? And and the nature of what we know about this relationship is the cops probably sided with the brother who wouldn't give his brother, the father, his own children back. And the sad part of this is, well, at least Charity didn't get their hooks into him, but I think he's still old order compliant.
Wow. Well,
But
see,
it's that relationship, that willingness to call the cop. That's calling the United States government to help enforce your religious, views.
well, see, like another thing that happened, like that very first year, in the first couple of years until like I moved away and I had lived away, and I actually, yeah, is that like the community that I left from, like they would call the cops and say that I was doing all this stuff that I literally was never, it was never even physically possible for me to be doing it, and so like after like there was questionings being done as to like my whereabouts, and I continually had to prove my whereabouts to prove that I wasn't doing what they said I was doing, etc., etc. I just said, you know what, this is a battle I'm not having. You can't do this to me, and I moved away. And even after I moved away, like it was still going on. That went on for years. Every bad thing that happened in the community was my fault, and they would
Right.
call the cops.
Bad influence.
Of course.
Yeah, I get.
Ah, well, and we're almost out of time. Do we have any parting thoughts? Because this is our last episode for a while. We're not going to be back next Sunday.
We should promote the Plain People's podcast.
Oh, yeah, that's coming out soon. I'm so excited. It's going to be great. I think it's in April. Have you seen that?
I mean, I have listened to it before. I used to listen all the time last year. It's been too crazy to catch up on any podcast whatsoever these days.
I just want to say to both of you, but to Susie, you to us, and I think many people, your story is a victory, and I didn't know that some of the harrowing details, and thanks for sharing that with us.
Yep. Thank you
But
so much.
um, you you seem like such a functional adult, and we 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 need those. So thank you for the role model you are for our viewers, and just for me. I'm so happy that you made this journey and you're willing to talk about it. And
Yes, of course. I'm thankful to be able to share because I needed somebody. I needed hope when I was young, and I really would have appreciated somebody saying it does get better. You're not the person that people say you are, and it gets better. And so if I can be helpful that way, if anyone is listening, it will get better. It can. And you can have a normal life. What does normal mean? Nobody knows.
We don't know.
But you can live beyond this just crippling depression and the feeling that you aren't good enough. You
And
can
that you're,
you can step past that.
and another thing is if you're in a relationship, like you were talking, Susie shared about her marriage and how it was very abusive and physically abusive. If you're in a relationship like that, don't give up hope. You can get out.
Mhm.
You can. I
You
believe
can.
you can. And we have another comment. We have a question. Where will I get church next Sunday? Well, I guess we could have a Dienerversammlung. And to
Family.
translate that, that is
I know that word.
how do you translate that, Susie?
Minute. Go
The
ahead.
fellowship
A fellowship of the ministers.
together. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe Chris can be ordained by lot, and we can have a fellowship. Yeah.
Absolutely. I support that. Yes.
Aww. Susie, you are welcome to be part of my family.
Thank you, Chris.
Aw.
Aww. And on that note, thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for listening, for supporting this show. I really couldn't do it without all of you. It's been really interesting and a time for growth and a time for kind of creating a community that comes together and helps each other. And I appreciate you, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you, guys.